Let's go. Let's do a little bit of a Druid guide for all of you. Anybody that's interested in learning the best deck in the game currently, and I do think this is the best deck in the game currently. This is the Druid list. Wait, no. This is the bunny list. This is a bunny list. This is what I played yesterday on stream. This is a bit better if you play more aggressive decks. And this is the Yanming list, which is like probably the one that's best for High Legend. But yeah. So I'm gonna walk you a little bit through, because the Mulligan is the same. I'm gonna walk you through the original list. So Yanming's a Chinese player who created this list. How do you mulligan? How do you play this deck? So what cards do you keep in the mulligan? So in the mulligan you keep Aquatic form, and then you keep Embrace of Nature, which is like one of your most important cards. And you have Embrace of Nature, you can keep Lifebinder's Gift, because it will make sure that you always get... the way that this works out, if you have Embrace of Nature in hand, you keep the Lifebinder's Gift. You force this on 2, then you play this on 3, which gives you a 5 mana Nourish with double stacks, and then you reduce the Nourish to 4 mana with a gift, and then you Nourish quickly. Another card you can keep in the mulligan is the Seedsman. Coroner is the card that you want to have against like Mech Rogue. If you know that you're facing a Mech Rogue, this card's pretty good. If you're facing a Mech Rogue as well, Rake is a decent keep. I wouldn't keep Pounce by itself, but I think Rake is a fine keep, because it helps you delete 2 targets in the early game. Of course, you can keep like cards like Pounce and Rake if you already have Embrace of Nature, which you can then forge and spend all your mana on. You can also keep some other cards to help you stabilize against more aggressive decks. So those are the kind of cards you want to keep in your mulligan. Mostly the best card you have in your mulligan, and by far, is Embrace of Nature. Potato. Is potato. Thank you very much, Lenny. Alright, so that was the simple mulligan guide for this deck. Sometimes if you play like against more like slow decks, you can keep Frostblow the Seedling. But yeah, or you can keep, like, if you play against another slow deck, keeping Nourish is also fine. Or keeping like Innervate together with the Seedsman. Innervate together with Ramp is pretty decent keep, because you just get it out early. And then I told you to keep Aquatic Farm in the mulligan. Aquatic Farm, you play this on turn 2 if you don't have Embrace of Nature in hand. If you have Embrace of Nature in hand, you usually play you forge Embrace of Nature on turn 2. But if you don't have it in hand, you play Aquatic Farm on 2 rather than on turn 1, because it gives you a lot higher chance of actually drawing a card, and you try to find Embrace of Nature to forge it. There's no Flower Child in this deck, because like a lot of the cards you want to draw here, they don't really profit that much of being like being reduced. And your general game plan is, of course, just like to ramp as quickly as possible, play a lot of spells with Embrace of Natures, Aquatic Forms, and whatnot, then ramp your deck with Nourish, ideally with like a Nourish that also draws cards. Then against the more aggressive decks, you just want to stabilize on board. And against like slower decks, what you want to do is what you can do in here, this is like the combo, alright? The combo, if you have armor, you can just play a Nubricon together with Jailer, right? And Tony. The general rule for the order of play between Jailer and Tony is if your opponent plays a deck like Druid that cannot deal with your Tony, or that cannot deal with your Jailer, the correct thing to do for these decks basically is you swap. You destroy your own deck first with the Jailer, and then you swap so you can have their deck, right? This is what you do if they can't deal with Tony. But if you play against something like Priest that has Silence, or like Rogue that has Destroy Concoctions, what you want to do is you want to swap decks after you've destroyed them, right? No, you want to... If you play against something that can deal with your Tony, you swap decks first, and then you destroy with the Jailer the deck, which gives your opponent two options. The first one, he leaves your Tony on the board, and when your Tony is on the board, you don't have a deck, but your opponent has a deck. And the other option, of course, is if they clear your board and they clear your Tony with the card like Brawl, for example, then you will get the rest of your deck and they will have no deck, right? If Tony can die, destroy opponent deck. If Tony cannot die, destroy your own deck. Exactly. That's the way you want to think about it. Ignis, in terms of like what advice I can give for weapons, it depends a little bit. Against aggressive decks, you can often go for like 1 mana, because you can get 1 mana, and then Poisonous, and then Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all enemies, and then will clear the board completely. Against like super slow decks like Warrior or Priest, I like to go for 10 mana and try to get a lot of value. No Eonar in my version. I trimmed my version to be good against like aggro, and then Eonar doesn't do quite as much against aggro, but I like the original version as well. Another thing that you can do if you do not have enough armor to just play this is you can play a Nubricon, and then you can play Contaminated Lasher, which will cost you 2 armor. And if you have a Frost Lotus Seedling that's upgraded to 2 cards and 10 armor, you can then gain 10 armor from this, which will leave you with 13 armor. So you just need like a Shitness Plating or something else to play, or like 2 armor to start the turn with, and you can do the Jailer Tony combo. So if your opponent keeps on taking away your armor, you can go like a Nubricon, Lasher, play the Frost Lotus Seedling, maybe even if it's reduced, and then you can still play the Tony Jailer combo. Just change Coroner to Glacial Shard. It's just, I was actually kind of considering about playing. I was considering playing Glacial Shard as well. It doesn't have the silence effect, I guess. I don't really know whether this helps too much. I think another card that I think is interesting to play in general is, and this is no joke, I think you should consider playing Yogg-Box in some of these decks. I don't think it's a terrible card to have, but I'm not entirely sure. You're probably better off drawing your deck, but this is an interesting consideration at least. Like, I built my version a little bit differently together with the Prison Breakers. Prison Breakers help you against like Unholy Decay and like Arcane Hunter that you might be finding. This is like, I think, a better version for lower ranks because you have more clear where there's like more aggressive decks.